In this presentation, we will continue on in our comprehensive problem related to a private college. We have the information on the left side. We've been entering that information into the blue area on the right side, entering that into our general journal, then posting that to our general journal worksheet. We have completed up through, if we scroll down, number 5. Now we're going to continue on to number 6. In order to do so, however, we have run out of room on this general journal. Therefore, we will open up the second set of cells. So I'm going to scroll back up. You can see from cell I, J, and then P, there's going to be some hidden cells in here. Those are the ones we want to open up. I'm going to put my cursor on the I, so it looks like that. Scroll over to P. So we have selected the hidden cells or the hidden columns, and then right click on that selected area. We will then unhide them. Then we're going to want to hide the ones that we don't need any longer. So that's going to be from cell F to J. So I'm going to select from cell F to J, let go, right click on those selected area and hide those cells. Those cells are no longer needed. Hopefully, we might have to open them up from time to time, but we're then going to go to number 6. Number 6, I'm going to scroll back down. We're going to make number 6 green, so I'll ungreen number 5, and we are moving on now to number 6. So here is number 6 is now green. We have the accounts payable and accrued liabilities ending balance of the $2,185. So this is going to be our adjusting entry. So if we scroll back up top and we take a look at what's in the accounts payable and accrued liabilities, we've got the 43,511, 43. Whoop, what? Don't want to undo. We're going to pull out the trusty calculator here. We're going to pick up that 43,511 right now. We're going to say 43,511. We need it to be, scrolling back down to our question, 2,185. So we're going to do our trusty subtraction problem in the trusty calculator, minus the 2,185. That gives us the 41,326. That 41,326 is what we need to bring the accounts payable down by and accrued liabilities in order to get them to what we think they should be at this point at the end of the time period, which is going to be the 2,185. Let's do that now. Also note that I've called this an adjusting entry because we did a similar kind of adjusting entry type of journal entry, but this is really going to be us recording the cash transactions for the time period, this full time period related to the accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So in other words, we're going to adjust the accounts payable and accrued liabilities down. So the accounts payable and accrued liabilities will therefore be the debit. That's going to be for the 41,326 that we came up with. And the other side of it is going to be cash. We're going to assume the cash transactions is the other side of this journal entry. So we're going to say the other side is cash and cash equivalents. In essence, this is going to be the cash that was received on account. So we're grouping this for the time period. All right, so we've got the debit's going to be at the 41, going to go B2, accounts payable, accrued liabilities. So that's going to be down below in cell R13. Within R13, we're going to say F2 plus F2, and then we're going to scroll up to that 41,326. That's going to give us the ending balance of 2,185. And then we're going to go to the cash and cash equivalents. That, of course, will be the top account in cell R3. Within R3, we're going to say F2 plus F2, scroll back over to the 41,326, and enter. So there we have that. That should put us back in balance. Let's double check that down below with the green zeros. It does look like we are in balance. We're good to go. We are now on number 7. So I'm going to ungreen number 6. So we're going to right click on that. Ungreen number 6. We're going to move to number 7. Right clicking on number 7. We're going to make number 7 green. We then have investment earnings receivable of the 4,170 and amount donor restricted for the scholarship of the 2,270. So we're going to say that we received cash, then we have the restricted revenue and the unrestricted revenue. So we're going to scroll back up top. We're going to be in number 7, so we're on number 7. We're going to say that cash is going to be the debit. We're going to increase in the cash. And then we have income, investment income. That's going to be an income statement type of account. The ones in the dark blue down below, we have both the, we have restricted and without restriction. So we're going to pick up the investment income without restriction. And then, of course, we will pick up the investment income with restrictions. And so there are those two. And then we're going to say we're going to pick up these balances to 4,170 Actually, we're going to pick it up this way. That'll be the total amount that was received. The amount donor restricted, there was a restricted amount of the 2,270. So that's the amount that's going to be restricted. So I'm going to put that in the credit on N8. Within N8, I'm going to say negative to make a credit balance. It's going to be increasing because it's kind of like a revenue type of account here. And then the debit is going to be for the full amount to cash. So cash was the full amount of the investment income of the 4,170. And then the difference is going to be here. I'm going to do it this way. This is going to be kind of like the plug formula. But first, I'm just going to say equals this plus this. And that means it subtracted them out because these two are, a positive and negative number. I then need to make this a negative. So I'm going to double click on it. And I have to do this with brackets now because it's not on the bottom. Because if I just put a negative on one of them, it won't, it'll make a different transaction. So we're going to say negative or different dollar amount. And then brackets the whole thing, and there we have it, 1,009. If I highlight these two, it adds up to 4,170, as is the debit. Highlighting the whole thing adds up to 0. Okay, so let's post it. We've got the cash first, so we'll scroll up to the cash. That's in cell R3. Within R3, we're going to say F2 plus F2. Scroll over to that 4,170 and enter. Then we have the investment income without donor restrictions. So we'll scroll down to the investment income without donor restrictions. That's in R21. So we're going to say equals. Scroll back up to the credit, 1,900. There is that. Then we have the investment income with donor restrictions. Scrolling back down, that's going to be in R22, where we will say equals. And we'll scroll back up and pick up that 2,270. So that brings that up, and that then, of course, should put us back in balance down below, indicated by the green zeros. All right, what do we have next? We're going to ungreen number 7. We're going to move on to number 8. So we will ungreen number 7. We are now on number 8. This is a long one. Going to make that entire thing green, like so. So within number 8, we have the adjusting entries. So the first adjusting entries is to adjust allowance for doubtful accounts. So we'll make that one basically, let's make it a lighter green. So we'll work on the sub number 8. Sub 8 is going to be this first one. Okay, so we're going to adjust the allowance for doubtful accounts, and we're going to be increasing the allowance for doubtful accounts. So this will be similar to a for-profit type of organization in the entries. Now make sure when you do this, note that we are up on the trial balance up top. So don't get confused. And we have another trial balance down here, which is going to be our closing entries. You want to be up top. So we are up here in cell K9 or K10. This is going to be number 8. Now, what we're going to have is this tuition and receivables. Then we have the allowance for doubtful accounts. The allowance for doubtful accounts represents those accounts that we believe to be uncollectible, but we don't know which accounts are uncollectible yet. Therefore, it is an estimate. We are increasing the estimate of the allowance for doubtful account, a contra asset account, and that will be decreasing the net value of the account, of the accounts receivable, tuition receivable, which will be this number minus this number. So we're increasing the allowance with an estimate. The other side, typically in a for-profit organization, would go to bad debt expense. However, here we're going to take it directly to the tuition and fees. And you'll see what happens here. Really, tuition and fees is kind of like revenue. Revenue goes up in the credit direction. If we are estimating bad debt or something that's not going to be collectible, in for-profit, we create another account called bad debt expense typically. And that's almost kind of like a contra revenue account because it's kind of reversing revenue that we didn't really get because we're not going to collect on it. So here we're going to say that we're going to reduce it directly to the revenue account, tuition and fees. So the transaction then is going to be the tuition and fees is going to be the debit without restrictions, and then the credit is going to be the allowance for doubtful accounts. We're looking at the tuitions. And the amount's going to be for that 13. So I'm going to say equals. I'm going to scroll back down to pick up that 13. There it is, and enter. That'll be the debit and the credit. Okay, so the tuition and fees is going to be recorded first. I'm going to scroll back down. Tuition and fees is in cell R19. I'm going to go into that by saying F2, then plus, and then F2, and I'm going to scroll back over to the 13. Then we have the allowance for doubtful accounts. That's going to be up top, the allowance for doubtful accounts in tuitions, and that's going to be in cell R6, where we will say equals and scroll over to that 13 and enter. So that increases that amount. And if we scroll back down, then we are, of course, back in balance. Okay, so that's going to be our first adjusting entry. Next, we're going to scroll back down. We're going to say that that one is done. I'm going to go ahead and ungreen that part of number 8, the part of the adjusted entries, which has been completed. Now we're going to say record depreciation expense. Now this one, the full depreciation expense, we are saying is the 26,560. We're going to break that out to the amount to instruction and the amount to academic support. So the depreciation expense, of course, you'll recall, is going to be a decrease in the value of the property, plant, and equipment, which we're going to allocate as we consume the property, plant, and equipment in accordance with the matching principle or the expense recognition principle. And so we typically will increase an allowance account, and that's going to be the accumulated depreciation. We will increase, and like the other transaction with the allowance up top, it's a contra asset account decreasing the book value recorded as the cost minus the accumulated depreciation. The other side then typically going to depreciation expense. However, here going to instruction expense and academic support, what those depreciation are being used for. So we're recording kind of by the function that we have. So we're going to say this is going to be 8B, and we will then say that we have instruction expense is going to be the debit instead of depreciation expense. So we have instruction expense, and then we have the academic support expense. The credit then going to accumulated depreciation. That's going to be the credit. So I'm in cell N15, negative, and then we're going to scroll down and pick up the total amount. So we're going to go back down to our transaction, and we're going to pick up the total depreciation. It's going to be the 26,560. So there is that. And then we're going to break that out. I'm going to break that out in accordance with the percentages. So the instruction expense, you'll recall, is the 70% and then the 30%. So let's break that out. I'm going to say this is going to be this number times, and I'll scroll back down and pick up the 70%. And then we're going to say this is going to be negative of this number times, and then we'll scroll down and we will pick up the 30% and enter. So there's going to be our transaction. These two, of course, now adding up 70 and 30, 100%, adding up to the 26,560, which is the credit. So now let's go ahead and post that out. We have the instruction expense. Scrolling back down to the instruction expense, that's going to be in cell R26. Something is in it, so we're going to say F2 plus F2. Scroll back up to that 18,592 and enter. Next, we have the academic support expense. So we'll scroll down to the academic support expense. We are in cell R27. Something is in it, so we're going to say F2 plus F2. Scroll back up. I'm going to move the cursor out of the way so we can see it to that 7,968 and enter. Then we have the accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation is going to be up top in cell R11 equals, and we're going to scroll back down to that 26,560 and enter. So there we have that. That'll put us back in balance, hopefully, with the green zeros down below. Next one, we're going to scroll back over and see what else we have in that long number 8 that we are currently working on. We have completed this portion of it. I'm going to ungreen the portion that we have completed. We're now on an increase in unearned revenue. So unearned revenue is increasing. You'll recall unearned revenue is going to be a liability account. Here it is. It's for revenue that has not yet been earned, and therefore we are recording it as a liability. So cash was received, have not yet earned the revenue. Now we're going to say that it's increasing, so there's needs to be an increase in the unearned revenue. So what we're going to do is credit unearned revenue. This is a credit balance account, therefore it goes up by doing the same thing to it, another credit. The debit then is going to be decreasing the tuition fees without donor restrictions. So in other words, you can think about it this way. We credited tuition and fees without donor restrictions, and then we calculated the unearned revenue that should still be unearned which we haven't earned. We don't have the right to record the tuition and fees credit here, and therefore we're going to decrease the tuition and fees, and we're going to increase the amount that has been unearned by, it said $10, I believe. So we're going to say 8C, and we're going to say that this is going to be equal to, what am I picking up here? The tuition and fees restricted is going down because we can't record it as a revenue. We're decreasing it with a debit. The other side going to unearned revenue. And then the amount, of course, being equal to, scrolling back down, the 10. That'll be the debit and the credit. We're going to record this then. We have the tuition and fees without donor restrictions. That's going to be in cell R19. Something's in it. So I'm going to say F2 plus F2. Scroll back over, and we have the $10. Then we have the unearned revenues. So unearned revenues is going to be our liability account. We are in cell R15 equals, and we're going to pick up the credit. So there's the credit and enter. That should put us back in balance. So if we scroll back down where we are at the green zeros, that looks good. Then we're going to scroll back down and we're going to ungreen number 10. So ungreen number 10. Next, we have an increase in the fair value of investments in the amount of the $4,910. The amount related to investments restricted for scholarships is going to be $1,040. The amount related to the permanent endowment, so it's going to be the $1,800. The difference between the $4,910 and these two amounts is going to be the amount that will be unrestricted. So we have two amounts that are going to be restricted here. So this is going to be, once again, the increase in the fair value of the investments. And of that increase, meaning we had investments that increased in value, the fair value went up. And of that increase, the amount related to investments restricted for scholarships is the $1,440. And the amount related to restrictions for the endowments, the $1,800, the difference going to unrestricted investments. So if we scroll back up top, we're going to call this 8D. Within 8D, we're saying that the investments are increasing. So investments are increasing, and then the other side is going to go to the unrealized gain. So we're going to scroll down here. We're going to put that in the income statement. Unrealized gains without restrictions, unrealized gains with restrictions with regards to the scholarship and with regards to the endowment. So the investments are increasing. We're saying they're going up in value. That's going to be an asset type of account. So investments are up top. They are increasing. So we'll start off with that. We're going to say the investments are going to be the debit type of account, the increase type of account. The amount is going to be equal to, scrolling back down, we're going to pick up the amount of the 4910. Then we're going to have a credit to the unearned gain on investments. So the credit is going to be down below. We're going to scroll back down to the unearned gain on investments without donor restrictions. And that's actually going to be like the plug number. So the next one is going to be the unearned gain on restrictions with on investments with donor restrictions. Let's do that again. That's going to be down below in cell L22 equals, and we're going to scroll back down, and we have the unearned gain with donor restrictions. This is related to the scholarship, so I'm going to say enter. That one we're going to pick up, so I'm in cell N22. We're going to pick up the number in our data by saying negative, because we're going to make it a credit balance. And we will then pick up the, all the way down to the green area, 1,040. Okay, and then we're going to have another restriction. So we're going to have, the next one is going to be unearned gain on investment. This one, a restriction for the endowment. That's going to be on the credit side as well in N23. Scrolling back down to our data, we're going to pick up the 1,800 and enter. So there we have that. Now this is kind of like the plug. We're going to do it similar to what we did last time. First, I'm going to calculate what the number should be. Then we'll put the flip the sign of it. So I'm going to say it's equal to this number plus I'm going to say the sum of these two, which in essence will be a subtraction problem because these are negative and that is positive. Therefore, there's our number, but we need to flip the sign for it. I'm going to double click on the entire thing, go to the end of it. I need brackets to do this. So I'm going to say negative brackets. of the entire thing. And there we have it. So if we add up then the credits, that adds up to 4,900. The debits add up to 4,900. We look good. We're going to go ahead and go to investments now and post that out. So we'll go to the investments on the right side. That's in cell R12, which equals, scrolling down to the investments of the 4,910 and enter. Then we have the unrealized gain on investments. So we're going to scroll down to the unrealized gains on investments. We have the restricted portion in R32, which equals, and we'll scroll back up and pick up that 2,070. Then we have the unrealized gains next item, which is going to be restricted with regards to scholarships. We are in cell R33 equals, scrolling back up. We're going to pick that 1,040 up. And then we have the unrealized gain restricted with regards to the endowment. That's going to be in cell R34 equals, scrolling back up, we're going to pick up the 1,800 and enter. And that, of course, should put us back in balance. So this is what we have so far. These are our ending balances. We're going to start here next time as we move towards and do next time the closing entries.